Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Speier, who co-sponsored a bill that passed the House yesterday requiring mandatory sexual harassment training for all members of Congress and their staffs. Congresswoman, first of all, Nancy Pelosi has now said that John Conyers should leave Congress. Do you agree?
I am delighted that the leader has made the decision she has. After hearing the interview of the young woman who worked for Mr. Conyers that you just showed, I just shook my head in disbelief. I find it so reprehensible that the pattern of behavior by men that whether it's Harvey Weinstein or in this case Congressman John Conyers, that somehow their expectation that someone who works with them should satisfy them sexually is an abomination, and we can no longer dance around what is clearly aberrant behavior and violates the Civil Rights Act and everything that we believe in terms of what we call here zero tolerance.
We talk about zero tolerance, or people talk about zero tolerance, but we were able to find this woman and to have her tell her story. Why is it credible that not one of 535 members of Congress could find this witness, could have her tell her story? How could Democratic leaders not know and still call him an icon on Meet the Press on Sunday?
Well, I think that, first of all, because these are payments that have been made out of the member's allowance, there is not an easy way of knowing who these people are. And I don't believe the leader was made aware that this settlement was made until it became public. So there is a very oblique system that exists here. You know, there are still members who are serving right now who have these same similar settlements that are not known to any of us because there are non-disclosure agreements.
Do you know any names?
I do. I know one in particular right now.
Who is that?
But there's a non-disclosure agreement. That's the problem with these situations. There's a non-disclosure agreement, so the victim cannot disclose, and the settlement is lost if they do so. And frankly, in many of these cases, the victims have already gone through a secondary trauma, because going through the process that we have right now in Congress is as bad as the actual original sexual harassment in many cases.
Can you disclose who the member of Congress is
I will
naming
not
the victim?
No, I won't do that, because it will become very obvious that it's a very small group of people that work for each member. They'll be able to identify who that individual is. Now, if that individual comes forward, that's a different story, and she may do that. But I think that it's really important for us to recognize we have a serious problem in the halls of Congress, and we've got to stop dancing around the fact that the system that's in place doesn't work for the victims, that we don't have a credible way of shutting down the bad behavior, and the Ethics Committee, frankly, is not the place to go, because the process there is too long and doesn't provide the kind of swift action that should be taking place.
Now, I know you've been a leader on this whole subject, but let me share with you. Yesterday, I interviewed Donna Edwards, your former colleague, former Congresswoman, Democratic Congresswoman, and she recounted the verbal abuse that Melanie Sloan, a former aide at the time she was an aide to John Conyers, suffered at the hands of John Conyers at a judiciary hearing. Let me play it for you. It happened 20 years ago.
About 20 years ago, I headed a group called the National Network to End Domestic Violence. I had organized advocates who came from around the country. Melanie Sloan was the staff person who was helping us with the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women.
She was working on the Judiciary Committee.
She was working for Mr. Conyers on the Judiciary Committee, and I witnessed the abuse that she has described publicly in the Washington Post and here on MSNBC as well. And it was something, he harangued her. He told her that she was a horrible lawyer, that she would never amount to anything, that she would never get a job anyplace else. I mean, it was the most offensive kind of abuse I think I've ever heard, and in fact, I stepped outside of the hearing room that we were meeting in, and I comforted her. She was trembling. She was visibly shaken. She was in tears. I asked her if it had ever happened before, and she told me yes at that moment. This was in, I think it was in 1998. And at the time, as advocates, because other people around the country heard that, we were going through a decision about whether we were going to pull away from the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act because of that. And Melanie convinced us that no, we should just do it and finish it. It's something that she had been working on, and I think she left the Hill shortly after that.
So it certainly influenced her career.
Well, it did, and I think, you know, as a result, I mean, I've known Melanie for more than 20 years now. I know her to be a truthful person, and I know what I saw. And it is, you know, although it's not the sexual harassment allegations that are also being attributed to Mr. Conyers, I know what I saw. And I think that it's unfair to characterize her, to characterize Melanie in a way that suggests that she's making up or exaggerating what happened to her. I believe what happened to her because I saw it.
And that's very powerful. She was called, Melanie Sloan was called a liar by doctors.
Well, you know, a hostile work environment also is a violation under the Civil Rights Act, and you know that would be grounds there as well. I know Melanie Sloan. I listened to her testimony over the weekend, and I've said this over and over again, Andrea. I believe the victims. You don't come forward in this kind of a environment without knowing full well that you're going to be trashed by people, that you'll be investigated. I mean, people who come forward right now are doing it, I think, in a very courageous manner. We are at a point where there is a new age of enlightenment, and we're going to make sure that we never have another generation of women have to endure this kind of just demeaning behavior and sexual traumatization that so many have endured.
And I just wanted to share with you, while we've been talking, Representative Joe Barton, the Republican from Texas, has announced he is going to retire from Congress. He will not seek re-election. So another departure from the House. Things are changing.
Things are changing, and I believe that they're all changing for the good. I can't tell you the number of women that have come up to me in the halls of the Capitol over the last few weeks with big smiles on their faces saying thank you, and men as well, because this has been one of those deeply held secrets in the halls of Congress for a very long time that has never really been addressed properly, and we're finally doing it.
And just for context, he had his own issues with someone with whom he had a relationship when he was separated from his wife, and there was some sort of possible revenge porn involved. So he described himself as a victim, but in any case, it's been embarrassing, and he is stepping down. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jackie.